just, I know you mentioned you were going to record it, so that's all good.
Okay, cool. We're recording.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, this is really around stopping, reflecting, planning, and then leveraging. And I know we're already halfway through January, which is crazy, but I think it's still really important to actually go, what are our hopes and dreams for this year? And are we being strategic about bringing those to life? So if we go to the next slide, what we're going to be looking at is the lessons from 2020. What are your values? Now, the term values is thrown around a lot, but I think often if you actually ask someone, what are your values? They sometimes struggle to actually tell you what they really, really are. So we're going to look at how you can really uncover what your values are. And then we're going to look at how to most effectively set goals and also then execute to those goals. So there's goal setting. You hear all about goal setting and goal setting workshops, and let's have a goal setting session. But to achieve those goals, you actually have to get into action and do some things. Next slide. So I've created this movement called the Kintsugi movement, and it's really around embracing, empowering, and unleashing the human element. And Kintsugi is actually a type of Japanese artwork. Some of you may have heard of it. And it's where the pottery is broken and it's mended with gold. And that beauty and the value of that artwork is within the cracks of it. And what I'm really trying to create is a community whereby we see each other's faults and imperfections as actually the strength that brings us all together. And we stop trying to pretend to be perfect. We stop trying to pretend like we've got it all together, and we just own up to our humanness and deal with that. So that's what we're about. Next slide. And yeah, our 4 key values are vulnerability, foresight, so looking ahead, human-centric, and sustainability. So I think quite often in the personal development and coaching space, there's a lot of suggestions and actions that you can take that are very quick wins, but they require you to step into practices and habits that aren't sustainable in the long term. If someone told me, okay, to achieve that goal, you're going to have to meditate for 3 hours every morning, I might be able to do that for a couple of days, but in the long term, that's not sustainable for me. So it's around finding ways to best be yourself and reach your full potential in a sustainable way as well. Next slide. So what we're going to be looking at today is not a cookie cutter approach. You guys know yourselves better than I know you. You guys can apply this knowledge to you. And I'm a big believer, and in the Kintsugi movement, what we believe as well is knowing yourself it really, all the magic starts there. And especially as a woman in leadership, you need to understand yourself. You need to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, what you're working on to really leverage forward. So understanding your goals, your values, and how that all ties in together is what I would really, really love for you to be able to leave this session and this workshop with. Next slide. So I know I've done a lot of the talking, but I'm really keen to hear from you guys. And it's a nice small group, so we can actually have a bit of a conversation. But what are some lessons and learnings from 2020? And not just lessons and learnings that you left in 2020, but learnings that you've actually gone, hey, that happened. I learned that about myself. I learned that about my environment or my workplace, and I've brought that into 2021. Does anyone want to be brave and share what maybe, it doesn't have to be big and crazy and out of this world, but just a small lesson and learning from 2020?
I'll be brave. So I think for me, sure, I'm trying to think what the biggest lessons and learnings from 2020 are. But I think for me, it's been about learning how to adapt, balancing work from home, as well as being a mom and doing schooling, and also trying to get a little bit of balance of me time and everything. It's been a huge challenge because suddenly all the times, I mean, like when you're working and you're sitting in a meeting and you've got a 9-year-old at home, they don't understand that when you're in that meeting, you're in a meeting, you're actually working. they think it's okay to come and give mommy a hug and to come and interrupt and to come and do stuff. So it's been a whole new way of working, a whole new way of thinking, but also about bringing balance into it, because you don't want to be working too hard. You also want to make time for your family, and trying to balance all of that stuff is challenging. So I think that for me is the one thing I've brought out of 2020.
I think one of the things that I learned was, I think, letting go and breathing consciously, deeply. And I think also just not sweating the small stuff.
Sorry, I was on mute and I was responding to you. Mariana, how can you apply that going into 2021?
Just when, we're living in a very uncertain world, and I think just to acknowledge that things are uncertain, and then just to, breathe through it. It's just life happens. Can't take it that seriously if you know what's really important to you. So don't sweat the small stuff. Remember what's important, what's significant in your life. Focus on those. And when the bumps come, and just take deep breaths and say, this is what life is about, and let's just take one step at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that, often if we look back, we hear, and throughout my life, I've always heard you learn from experience, but you learn from reflecting on experiences and actually taking those lessons and learnings out of them. So I think it's really important to stop and actually go, what happened? What happened and what can I take away from that, rather than just seeing 2020 as a waste of a year that we all just want to forget, because there was so much growth and so much learning and so much insight from it. So that's great. Does anyone else want to offer any key learnings and lessons?
I think for me, it was a resilience. Just everyone in my team lost someone close to them. And one lady is off on burnout leave, and we had the busiest year ever, and still we managed to get through it. So yeah, just one day at a time, and knowing that you can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that sounds awful. I'm sorry to hear that, but you're so right. Humans are so resilient. And I think we often underestimate our power until we're actually put into that position, or where we have to deal with that, and we have to lead people through that, and we have to support people through that. And yeah, like everyone in this room's had their own challenges. And I think in the last session we had, there was that quote, same storm, different boat. And 2020 was definitely that in a nutshell. So I really just encourage you all to look back at last year. Don't go, oh, 2020, oh, forget that. I don't want to even talk about that, because I guarantee you there's so many pearls of wisdom, and there's so many moments of insight and learning and personal growth that are within 2020 that you can take forward and use them to leverage you as we move into 2021. Awesome. Cool. If we go to the next slide, that would be great. So yeah, I think what I want to look at now is values. And companies have values, right? It's kind of like this tick. Yep, we've got our company values. They're up on the wall. They're on our website. And in best case scenario, they use those values to guide their decisions in the way that they do business, in the way that they engage with people. And I think as humans, we all have values, whether we recognize it or not. And actually uncovering those values and understanding them and helping them guide you in making your decisions is incredibly powerful. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I actually uncovered my values. I'm a value-driven person, but I never really knew what my values were. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a little exercise to look at maybe what your values are. So it'd be great if you guys have a pen and paper handy, and you can go through this exercise with me. So we can just go to the next slide. I'll show you how it's going to work. So there's two kind of prompt questions, and I want you guys to think about, okay, number one was your upbringing, because our values are products of the way that we were raised and the environment that we were raised in and what we saw as being important and not important. So think about, what were you praised for and what did you see as being prioritized? Now, obviously this is a very refined version of this exercise, but I was very conscious that, that it's a workshop and we don't have 4, 5, 6 hours, although if you guys want to stay on that long, we can. But if you have a think about what were those things? And then the prompt question number 2 is the now. So in the now, what do you spend most of your time doing? What items, objects, or people do you most consistently have in your personal space? What do you seem to gravitate towards? And what do you spend your money on? What do you speak, write, and post about? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to just scribble down a few thoughts here, and don't censor your thoughts, just mind map, just free flow, and have a think about what these were. And I'll give you guys a couple of minutes and then we'll see what came up. Does that make sense? Any questions from anyone there? I'll take the silence as a no, but just unmute if you have a question. While you guys are working on that, I'll actually share with you my responses to those. So Shanti, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great. So what I've got here is just a few, and I haven't gone into huge detail, but in my upbringing, what was I praised for achievement, mainly in sports, for being nice, for helping others, and for being good and well behaved. And then what did I see being prioritized? Exercise, health, well-being, and outdoor activities. So, and this isn't an activity just to rip apart our parents' parenting style. It's an activity just to see the environment that we were raised in, to not to judge it, but just to acknowledge it and see how we perceive that. Then in the now, what do I spend the most time doing? So working, outdoor activities, and well-being. What items, objects, or people do I consistently have in my personal space? So people who inspire me, coffee, family, and my phone. What do you seem to gravitate towards? So challenging, people-focused roles, change, and the ocean. I love the ocean. And what do I speak, write, and post about? So I'm drawn to share news or posts or opinion pieces on injustice, leadership, or photos of the beach. So those were what came up for me when I did this exercise. How did you guys go? And you don't have to talk about each and every one, but maybe what was 1 or 2 things that came up for you?
So I think for me, there's 2 things that really stuck out. One is what I call adventure, an outdoor adventure, and the other is my family. And the third one's probably my career and my new business. So a lot of time spent outdoors, a lot of time spent on bicycles, cycling, hiking, camping, all of that with my family. And yeah, building my business, building career coaching, CV development, and this women's leadership group, I think are core right now to what I'm focused on.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw some of your photos from your holiday. Very adventure focused.
Very much so.
Awesome. What about anyone else? What did you guys come up with? And it doesn't have to be a perfect finalized version. It's just really at this point brainstorming and trying to see what comes up to these prompt questions.
I came up with spending a lot of time in nature, challenging the status quo, investing in knowing myself, and supporting and counseling others.
Amazing. That's awesome, Laura. Really good insights there. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I tend to gravitate towards creating an order out of chaos. But like the name of Shanti's business, which I really like.
Creating order out of chaos. Some people avoid that like the plague, but you gravitate.
I love it, yeah.
Why do you love it?
Yeah, I like things to be in order, in their place, and when everything is crazy, it just gives me satisfaction to sort of sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Really great stuff coming out of this activity, guys. Well done. Anything else? Anyone else want to share?
Yes, I would like. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. My words are around learning. I like learning any different type of subject. I care about my career and my business. And the other is adventure, traveling, and be with my family.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to share anything? That's pretty much everyone, actually. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for that. And I think this is such a valuable exercise, no pun intended, to do, because if we are true and understand our values, we can make really clear decisions. And if we go to the next slide, when I went through this exercise and I did many, many more of these questions, the ones that came up for me were power, well-being, connection, and creativity. And when I saw that first one, I was like, power? What an awful value to have. Why do you have power as a value? You know, it had this connotation around it. And as I got into it further, what I think what that means for me is having the power in decisions that I make in terms of what I'm doing, the information that I'm sharing. And I love leading. I love that. So that's what that really came from for me. Also the well-being side of things. So similar to you guys, like beach, lifestyle, activity, adventure, that's really, really key for me. Connection with other people, with other communities, and creativity. So having the ability to create and curate narratives and stories and communities as well is really key. And there's a example that I use, and it only happened a few months ago, where I was between a rock and a hard place with this decision that I was making. And the only thing that guided me in that decision was this list of these 4 values. So I am working part-time in my day job, I guess I'll call it. And then I've got working part-time in the Kintsugi movement, which I'm really trying to build, and it's going really well and I'm loving it. And my day job approached me and said, hey, do you want to do this full time? And they offered me this really great opportunity, and it was so enticing, and I very easily could have said yes. But when I looked at what I'm doing now and I looked at a full-time role with them, my values were so much more aligned to what I was doing now. And I went, do you know what? If I'm actually going to be living true to my values, I need to say no to that opportunity and yes to continuing down this path. even though it's harder, even though it's a little bit more stressful, even though it's a bit more unknown, in this path, I'm able to make decisions for my own business. I've got the work-life balance for my well-being. I'm able to connect with people like you guys in forums like this. And I've got the creativity to create and dream and brainstorm and do all these things, which I wouldn't be able to do in a 9-to-5 corporate role. So to the same extent. So I think coming up with your values is so, so powerful. And I will say as well, your values do change. What you guys come up with will not be the same for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Your values change, we grow. And it's important to do this exercise every year, every couple of years. So I really encourage you with the answers that you came up with in the previous slide, and I'm happy to share this with you all guys as well, to actually go through with a highlighter or a big pen and circle all sorts of things and go, what are the key things coming up here? And for a lot of you, it did sound like it was adventure and lifestyle and family, but try and capture those themes and come up with a list of 3 or 4 values that you can call your own for this season in your life. Does anyone have any questions on that? Or any thoughts? Or does anyone think they can already articulate what 1 or 2 of their values are?
Yeah, mine would definitely be creativity again.
Creativity, yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you bring that to life in what you do?
Yeah, a lot of things. I read a lot of books, which are very much fantasy oriented, so very sort of creative in your mind. I'm very much a process improvement oriented, which is also, you need to be creative. Yeah, I tend to draw and write and that sort of thing. Enjoy poetry. So yeah.
Awesome. And do you find that when you're doing that and are so aligned with your values, you just enter this state of flow? Like it just seems, for me anyway, when I'm...
Yes, so you know immediately when you're not in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question, do you feel like that's always been one of your values?
Pretty much, yes. I did, I think, lose touch with it for a while, but I'm making my way back.
Awesome. Great. Anyone else? What's one value that's come up?
One of the things that's come up for me is learning is one of my values. And I think
awesome.
how I use
lots of book behind it.
I think, and one of how I probably use that is, if things don't go my way, you know, my question is always, okay, so what can you learn from that? So I think that's one of the values here.
Amazing. It's such a great value to have that learning and growth mindset. Awesome. Anyone else?
Thanks. So for me, I've mentioned adventure and time with family, but one of the others is nurturing others. So I think a large part of what I'm doing with Clarity from Chaos is nurturing and growing. There seems to be a huge need out there for career coaching, CVs, resumes, professional guidance for young people who are embarking on their first careers, and also for the more experienced people who are in the process of changing their careers. And yeah, I seem to be spending a lot of time focused on that right now, which is something I really enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think even what you're doing with this group is just testament as well to that nurturing as well. So awesome. Well, it sounds like we're all doing a really good job of bringing our values to life as well, which is such a great sign. I think when we're living in alignment with our values, that's where the magic really happens. So awesome, guys. Next slide. Okay. Oh, Isabel, did you want to say something? No. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to look at now are your goals, and goals are the blueprint to success. And we're going to actually look at what specifically are goals beyond the general term, and how can you bring your goals to life. So if we go to the next slide, what I've got is that goal setting is really, it's about turning your dreams into reality. Who sets goals, in my opinion? Legends. And why? For direction, focus, self-belief, success, and motivation. So if we have a look at goal setting, we're going to go through a bit of an activity off the back of the values activity that we just did. So if we go to the next slide, well, I've got what I call the wheel of life. So life can be broken up into many, many segments, okay? Life is not as simple as this wheel, unfortunately. But I'd love for you guys to pick one segment in this wheel that because I think probably a lot of us have gone into this year, we've got goals around work or relationships or whatever other areas of your life. But if you pick an area that you haven't looked at, that would be great. If you could pick an area and type it into the chat, an area that you feel like you don't really have any goals in it right now, but you would like to look at maybe one goal that you could have in that area. Cool. So you guys, if you just type it in the chat, okay. Oh, awesome, come through privately. Cool. So if we now we're going to look at how we can, I guess, come up with a goal in that space. But first I want to talk about, if we go to the next slide, self-censorship. And this is a term that I became familiar with about 3 years ago. And it's really this idea that, and especially it's proven in women, we do it a lot, is when we're setting goals or when we're thinking about something that we're going to say that's a little bit risky or takes us a little bit outside of our comfort zone, we censor it and we go, oh, is that appropriate? Oh, should I say that? Oh, is that going to be perceived well? And we start overthinking things and we end up not actually coming up with the goals or the statements or the big audacious plans that maybe our hearts to our core really want to actually express. We say what other people think that we say what other people want to hear. So when we self-censor, if we go to the next slide, I guess some of the results of that can be, you know, you're feeling isolated or misaligned or lost or claustrophobic, because just like when you're not living true to your values, if you've got these goals that aren't really aligned to you and you're actually working towards goals that are for other people rather than yourselves, this is kind of what you end up with. And the way I see it is that if you're going to put so much time and effort into achieving a goal and going on that journey, you need to make sure that that journey takes you to a place that you really want to be. So it's around actually, and I think that's why it's so great that we've got a group today where we don't have to worry about what the other person, like, Laura, I'm sure you're great, but you're on the other side of the world. I'm not worried about what you think about my goals. You know, it's this awesome space where we can actually go, hey, who cares what everyone else thinks? What are our actual goals in the spaces that we're looking at, whether it's financial, emotional, adventure? And what does that look like? Take away the censorship and let's look at that. So if we go to the next slide, I want you guys to think about, in that area, what is your goal, okay? And again, you don't have to go and make this big statement to your friends and family and the world. This is between you and your pen and paper. What is your goal? What arena does that goal fall into? So from that wheel of life, what value does that goal align with? Because when our goals are aligned with our values, just like when we were talking about when you're working or you're being creative and creativity is one of your values, things flow, things feel easy. You're pulled rather than pushed. So what value does your goal align with? Because if you're clear on that, you're going to set yourself up for success. What does success look like in 1 year? And then what do you need to be doing at a monthly, weekly, and daily practice level? So there's a lot there. I'll give you guys I'll give you probably 5 minutes, because I don't expect you to go in 1 or 2 minutes. Does anyone have any questions on that? All good. Awesome. I'll give you guys some time and then we can loop back around. I'm going to do this as well.
Welcome, Selena. We're just working on an exercise.
Selena, if you want to, we're just talking about goals. So if you want to think about a goal and look at these prompt questions, that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Hopefully I haven't missed too much.
We can send you the recording as well.
Thank you.
Okay, great, guys. So does anyone want to share what they came up with? Who wants to be brave? I've got mine, but I want someone else to go first. Create a calm, peaceful, and home environment. Shanta, do you want to talk about what that means or what that looks like?
Yeah. So I think our house is a very, very busy house. We run an animal rescue. We work from home. We're homeschooling. And I think over a period of time, we've lived there for almost 17 years. It's become very busy. And I almost want to sort of go back and say, let's get rid of stuff that we don't need. Let's create a more calm space. Let's organize it a little bit better, which drives my husband nuts, but at least that way it's a little bit more calm and peaceful. So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. That's great. It's great. 17 years, 7 years. You've decided now, and now you get to put it into action. That's awesome. I'll share with you guys what mine was. My goal is to actually relax a bit more with friends, and that falls into the lifestyle category. And for me, that's come off the back of just always, I'm such a yes person and saying yes to all these opportunities because I feel like I'm going to miss out if I don't. But with that, it also takes away from my friends and my really close relationships because I'm always thinking when I'm with them, it seems like I'm just chatting or I'm just catching up where I could be going and achieving this and achieving that. And that kind of goes back to if you look at what I was praised for. So this year, what I really want to do is spend more time with friends. And the way I'm going to do that is by learning to delegate, learning to say no to things that will stop me from doing that. And for me, when I've broken it up at a monthly, weekly, and daily level, the monthly part of it is trying to actually organize some catch-ups throughout the month, weekly doing a coffee with a friend, and daily, figuring out opportunities that I can say no to get back a little bit of time in my day to allow for that time to relax as well. So I think it's often we make things look really, really massive, but when we break it down into achievable steps, I find that can be incredibly helpful. Does anyone else want to add anything? You guys are putting some things in the chat. Anyone want to speak on what came up? If not, all good. Cool. All right. If we go to the next slide.
Can I speak? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. I have a goal, which is to work and live in Canada. And in which arena this goal falls is career, adventure, and learning. And what success will look like in a year is to be there and work there. And what do I need to do to achieve that? Now I already joined Canadian Access Program. And the second step I have to is to increase my network in my environment target area, which is Canada food industry. And yes, it's basically this.
Thank you for sharing, Isabel. That's fantastic. And I think if you say go and live and work in Canada, that's a pretty big goal. But when you've broken it down into some of the steps that you need to take to do that, it really does break it down and make it more achievable. And you can actually go through the process and enjoy it rather than being like, that's a massive goal. How am I going to achieve that? So thank you. And that's so exciting as well. Awesome.
I have already some small, like now I am a member of the Canadian Institute of Food Safety. I have some a certificate as well of that they can issue if the person is interested, which is the Canadian Food Handler.
Amazing. It sounds like you're doing all the right things.
Thank you.
All good. Okay, so next up is it's pretty easy to set goals, but we obviously have to do the things and take the action like Isabel has shown us. And discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. So it's one thing to say, yeah, I want to do that, but it's another thing to say, okay, I'm actually going to take that daily action, that weekly action, and that monthly action as well. So if we go up to the next slide. What I want to talk about is your hurdles. So it's really important, I think, to actually have a really good hard look at yourself and your environment and go, what are the hurdles internally and externally? And I've got these guys here because superheroes are often said, they're amazing and they're great and they can do all these amazing things, but all of them have their own kryptonite. All of them have these environments or these things that do hold them back as well. So at the end of the day, even superheroes have challenges, even superheroes have hurdles. And it's important to recognize that we do as well, and we're kidding ourselves otherwise. So that's fine. We all have hurdles, but we need to understand them, and we need to then come up with a plan to actually work either around them or be able to come up with a plan to work through them. So next slide. Some hurdles could include things like either challenges that you have or people involved, internal blocks. And in all honesty, I think this is biggest one. So one of my goals and adventures that I wanted to do was to create my business. And the biggest block there has not been technology. It has not been coming up with an idea. It hasn't been coming up when figuring out what I want to focus on. It's been my head, and it's been my head going, are you good enough? Can you do this? Is this what you should be doing? What are people going to think? And it's been those internal blocks that have been my big hurdle. You've also obviously got the external blocks, so environment or resources or internet connectivity, whatever that looks like. Worst case scenario is often important to think about, because often it's not as bad as you think your mind may think it is. Best case scenario, next steps, and resources and support. So these are all things that you need to consider when you are looking at your hurdles as well. So if we go to the next slide and then skip to the next one again, we're going to look at, okay, coming up with a bit of a game plan. So with what you guys have looked at today and what's come up with your values and your goals, I'd be really encouraging of you to think about 1 or 2 people that you could actually tell about this goal. And not because you're trying to impress them, not because you want their approval, but because you want them to know that you're doing it. And I think that action in itself, it creates this level of accountability. If you want them to check in on you and keep you accountable and ask you how it's going, that's fine. But I really do think that when you tell someone you're going to do something, there's almost this level of, oh, now I've got to do it. Or now it's out in the open, it's happening, it's real. And that's also incredibly powerful in terms of, I guess, moving you towards achieving that goal. Your dream team. So who do you need in your corner? What do you need to know? So for me, in terms of those mindset challenges and thinking, am I good enough? Can I do this? My dream team has actually been a bunch of people who don't even know who I am. And I've listened to them on podcasts, so it's coming up with a group of people or influencers or content or articles, whatever that looks like. Dream team can be anything. It doesn't have to be an actual team of people. But what do you need in your world and in your space? How are you going to keep your cup full? So, sometimes things do get hard, and also discipline, sometimes it's difficult to actually keep consistently showing up and showing up and showing up. So what are you doing to keep your cup full? Are you doing your morning exercise? Are you stretching? Are you finding time to read? What is it that you're doing to keep yourself fueled? And I like to also just have a few little things that I think set you up for success, which are a good pump up playlist, happy moments, integrating those into your life, even if it's just waking up and seeing the sun or looking out and seeing, I don't know what it looks like for you, but finding the little happy moments, finding happy places, a morning routine, a book list, and a journal and journal prompts as well, I find are incredibly helpful, which I can share with you guys as well. So have a think about what that looks like for you. And I'd be really keen to hear what your thoughts are around who your accountability partner could be. So maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's a friend, a cousin. Who can you tell, hey, really crazy, but I've set this goal to climb Mount Everest, or really crazy, but I've set this goal to meditate 5 minutes a day. Who's got an accountability partner in mind? Awesome, guys. Love that in the chat. Yeah, I think accountability is a big one. It really, yeah, I find it's a huge game changer when it comes to setting yourself up for success. Great. All right, that concludes things from me, but a huge thank you to you guys. And obviously there's keep my cup full, long husky walks and bike rides. Nice. Yeah, it's so, so important to be looking after yourselves to achieve those things. So that's me. You guys can find me on, I've got website, email address, Instagram, all the rest. I can send you all a follow-up email with some of this content as well. But obviously, I don't expect you to have set up all your goals and got them ready and everything is up and running and ready to go off the back of a 1-hour session. With what you've written down and contemplated and thought about, go back to it over the next couple of days and nut it out a little bit more and think about how you can translate it into 1, 2, 3 goals that you can really take into this year, and set yourselves up for success and really reset. So that is it from me. Huge thanks as well to all of you for engaging. Workshops are hard, so I want to thank each of you for really just showing up and giving your time and energy to this group. It's really great. So I'll hand it back over to you.
So yes, a huge thank you to Andrea for this workshop. It was quite exciting to have someone different do the talking for a change, so I could listen and be part of the conversation. I'm just trying to stop the share. Hold on. There we go, so I can see all your faces. So yeah, a fantastic opportunity. For those of you who are regularly part of the conversation, you should have this in your diary now for the full year. We're going to be going the 3rd Friday of every month at the same time. For those of you who are new to the forum, please make sure you put your email address into the chat so I can make sure you get added to the meeting requests. And if you don't have it in your meetings, I can also add it into the meeting request. You guys are welcome to forward it on to anyone else you know who may benefit. The idea is to grow a leadership circle that really is that. It's a leadership circle for everybody to bring thoughts and things through, to share, to learn, to listen. And yeah, a bit sad this week that we only had 7 of us, but in some ways also a good thing because we had some good quality conversations. And yeah, looking forward to next month. Next month is on the, I'm just going to check my calendar. I know I did put it there. So the 3rd Friday of next month will be the 19th of February. So we'll be meeting again on the 19th of Feb. And yeah, looking forward to chatting to you guys. I am hoping to talk through some learnings from a book called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. I've just finished it and there's some really nice insights there. So I'm hoping to pull some of the things through from there and use that and maybe do it as a sort of leadership development conversation next month. March, I am looking for someone who's happy and willing to volunteer and maybe facilitate, so you don't all have to listen to me every time. Thanks, Andrea, this month. But yeah, if any of you are keen to facilitate a conversation in March, just let me know. Okay, I will stay on the line in case anyone has any questions. And yeah, that's it for this month. Thank you. I have recorded the session and we'll share it through on YouTube to you guys. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Great session.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody's who's still here. Lynn, you're very quiet this week. No, okay. I'm going to hang up and end the call for all then. No one's come off mic. Cheers, guys. Bye.